Welcome to my presentation on kosher dining. Today I'm going to be discussing the traditional and nutritional aspects of the ancient tradition of the Jewish diet. Kosher dining goes back thousands of years. So, just to start off, I wanted to show how normally unkosher food is depicted. So, on the left, I have a bacon cheeseburger, which one would say is the least kosher thing. And then on the right, I have some lobster tails. And while both of these foods are definitely not kosher, um, I today I'm going to be discussing how there's a lot of different there's a lot of different things that kosher means and what it applies to other kinds of foods. So just to reiterate, being kosher is much more than not eating cheeseburgers. So why do Jews observe kosher eating? So the first one, which is can be kind of a misconception and was what I believed before I started my research, is health and dietary reasons for kosher eating. When I began my research, I thought I was going to be learning a lot more about historical reasons why pigs were considered dirty in the Jewish tradition. And this is true, however, it can be more of a misconception, and also a lot of my research didn't point to this. The main one is the Torah or the Old Testament doesn't even provide reasons for these laws. A why factor. The why factor is it's because God told you so. Um, so a lot of the laws discuss how to make oneself more holy and uh, better for God. So in the ancient times, kosherism was a way for Jews to distinguish themselves from other people. So one reason why Jews didn't eat pig was, and still don't eat pig today, but they began this because a lot of other peoples in the Fertile Crescent ate a lot of pig. So they didn't eat pig to make themselves a different community. And another reason was because there was a strong belief that the soul of a creature lived in the blood of the creature. So there's a lot of laws in the Torah which depict how to properly um, drain the blood of an animal before consuming it. Keeping kosher also applies to not just food, but to how to take care of the Torah scroll, where all the laws and stories are written, like the Bible, and to one's body and cleansing it weekly in the mikvah or the bathhouse. So, and you can hear people today say it's not kosher, which means like that's not um, like status quo. People, I hear that colloquially. Um, and a big theme in my research was the differences in the dichotomy between holy and clean versus forbidden and unclean. And just to note, under each of my slides where I use sources, I have them listed. Um, so, some examples of these laws, like I said before, is all the blood must be drained from the meat or broiled out before it is eaten. So, they do not eat raw red meat. And then a second major law is the meat and any mammal meat is not eaten with dairy. And the specific reason is you do not, that the Torah outlines, is that you do not eat the meat of the calf with the milk of the mother. But the law continues and says that fish, eggs, fruits, and vegetables are not eaten with either milk or dairy. So, like my grandpa, he will not eat ice cream if we've had steak for dinner. So usually it's um, They it depends on the person, but it'll be anywhere from 30 minutes to a few hours if you have meat that they won't eat dairy. So utensils and other kinds of plates that have been in contact with meat may not be used with dairy. So you have separate meat and milk plates and silverware. And then finally, grape products made by non Jews may not be eaten. And so, wine, Jews have specific kinds of wine that they will drink if they keep kosher. And just to say that this is not all of the kosher laws, there are many, many others, but I just highlighted a few. So, one I'm going to touch on again briefly is that the cloven hoof law. So, Jews do not eat meat of animals that are have cloven hooves that are not split underneath. So here on the left, there's a goat hoof, which is split underneath, and then the giraffe cloven hoof, which is not split underneath. It's split only down the front. Um, so on the next slide, that's the bottom of a camel's hoof. So that animal's not considered kosher because it is not split underneath. And this is because in the Torah it says that if the hoof is not split underneath, it is not as holy as another animal that's split underneath because both sides of its hoof is not touched by the land, which is kind of an interesting reason. Um, so being kosher is very much intertwined with being religious and following the teachings of the Torah. So um, and here, just finally on the cloven hoof, here's a handful of cloven hoofs that are split down the middle on the bottom side, but on here you can see that the horse is not, and also the wild boar is not split there. So the pig and then horse. So kosher in a modern era, you can find kosher food everywhere in all supermarkets. And so you can find these symbols that I have on the right on food to indicate to the consumer that they are, in fact, kosher food. So typically you'll see a U with a circle around it or a K with a circle around it. And on the left, I have a bag of potato chips that have the U to indicate the kosher, that the product is kosher, and then the ketchup bottle, which is also kosher. Um, but why are these labels found everywhere? It seems like so Jews are only 2% of the American population, but 40% of the food packaged in the US is kosher. And even of this 2% of the population, only 15% of that keep kosher, which is only under a million people in the US, which is about the same population as South Dakota, just for a reference point. Um, but how? So this is very interesting that there's so few people that keep kosher, yet so much of food packaged is kosher. So there are some people that choose being kosher for the belief that kosher food is cleaner or better for one, but this isn't totally true because an Oreo is an Oreo, even if it's kosher. So it's not like that food is healthy. However, there are certain standards that kosher food meet um, that some may consider to be better. Another reason why is Muslims follow halal, which is another kind of restrictive diet outlined in the Quran. But a lot of the times they cannot find halal food, so they rely on kosher foods in the United States. Um, so just to wrap up the kosher food and dining, um, today kosher food is everywhere, and you can find it everywhere. And many people unconsciously eat kosher food. I think that a really big one is at a baseball game. I feel like I find the kosher national hot dogs everywhere. Um, that's just sometimes like when I go to the Rockies game in Denver. That's what they're, or Hebrew national hot dogs. That's what it's called. Hebrew National hot dogs, the kosher hot dogs. Um, and being kosher is on a spectrum. It's not black and white of you are kosher or not. However, it varies between how religious you are. So a lot of people will not eat milk and meat together, or they won't eat pig, or they won't eat shellfish. Um, but they will um, have the same plates for milk and meat meals, which other Jews would not do. Um, and then, lastly, this is a thousands of years old tradition that is still very much alive today, and you can see how alive it is based on walking through the supermarket. So, next time you go to a supermarket, I think it would be interesting to try and find kosher food with the U or the K on it, and it won't be very hard. Um, so thank you so much for listening to my presentation today. I really enjoyed being in this course. And finally, I just have my bibliography. Um, and that is all. Thank you so much.